Welcome to the Volvo Ocean Race stopover here in Lisbon. This is Hannah Cotterell, part of the Harkin team, catching up with Team SCA's Richard Mason, shore manager for SCA. How are you doing?
We're doing very well. We're getting towards the end of the race in sunny Lisbon here. We're midway through getting the boats back together to go in the water on Sunday, and it's our last sort of big haul out before the end of the race, and it's getting pretty close, and the competition is hot.
Getting exciting.
It's getting very exciting. It's a super tense time, especially for us as the shore teams now, because it's like one massive stopover to the end of the race. So
this is the biggest one left over.
Yeah, this is the biggest one, and then we go straight from here to Lorient, which is a non-haul out, which means we're not allowed to take the boats out. And then in The Hague is a pit stop, so we're not actually allowed on the boat. And then Gothenburg, where it's all over.
It makes me sad to think that it could nearly be over.
It's a dangerous thing, this race, so it's never over.
How is the Boatyard, which is obviously a new addition to the Volvo Ocean Race, been for you?
Yeah, it's been really interesting to integrate them with the Boatyard. In previous races, we something like this has never existed. So it's meant that for with the One Design yachts, because we have all Harken gear on all the deck gear on all the boats, so we have all the same suppliers for the keel systems, engines, all the electronics on board. So it means that we can pool and utilise resources through the Boatyard in a much more efficient way. So it seems to work very, very well. We're sort of set up more as a traditional team, so we have a slightly, I don't know if it's larger, but more independent shore team. But that sort of came about because we started very early as well.
And obviously, being on the ground and part of the Boatyard, you have the Harkin tech team here who service the boat at every stopover. Have you worked closely with them at stopovers, or do they kind of just run with it? What's it like having them on the ground?
Oh, it's great. I mean, and they're all familiar faces that we know well with Mark and Max and the guys they've been around, and Sam. They've all been around the race for years, so these are guys that we know and trust.
That's really good to know. And going back to the boats as well, away from the shore side of it, what do you think about the Volvo 65 versus the Volvo? I know you've been waiting for me to ask this question, but Volvo 65 versus the previous 70. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's a form and function thing. These boats are here to be that little bit stronger, that little bit safer, and really with the onus being on the One Design sort of sailing side of it, and the teams and sailors versus the sailors. Yeah. I mean, the Volvo 70s were unquestionably beasts of things that went as fast as hell, and they were incredibly challenging to design, build and race around the world, and they were on the limit. Yeah. So there is an element of that which of course we miss, and they were amazing at points, probably a little bit too extreme machines. And we've seen it here. These boats have proven to be very reliable, and we had a lot of breakdowns with the 70s in the last race, but that's because they were just pushed so hard. Yeah. And the safety factors are a lot less than they are on these boats. So when you look at what's going on here today, these boats are doing a very good job for what they've been asked to do.
And is there a side of it that's potentially exciting on a different level because everybody is starting on the same playing field? So it is really now down to tactics and sailing and the crews themselves rather than the individual boats.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the old boats, they were motored slightly differently. The whole race started with a massive weather research program. So you'd go back through 100 years of weather data. You would look at the course, and you'd look at the different times that the boat would be sailed at different wind angles, and you would design a boat that was optimised around whatever wind angle you thought you would be sailing the most. And to get that, sometimes you have to give away a little bit of upwind performance or dead downwind performance to build a boat that's very fast reaching, and that means that the boats all get depending on opinions, slightly motored slightly differently. So you would see them looking for their sweet spots and splitting off a lot more. Whereas this, the boats they're inside of one another the whole time. Right. And it's super close, and as they're like stuck together with rubber bands. So it's
watching the racing, it has been very, very close, nail biting at time for people watching it on the tracker.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. One big thing that's coming is this AIS factor, because the guys can see one another the whole time, and they can see the angles and the boat speed. I think it'd be really interesting to see what would happen if we actually turned those off and actually only use them when they were in shipping channel areas. I think you would probably see a bit more separation.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be more interesting because you would probably have more diversity in tactics. Well, not necessarily tactics, but routes taken.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, we have the A's of radar and AIS, but if you take that away, when you can't see someone, they might be going 5 degrees lower than you for 6 hours, and that might create some separation. Versus, with these guys can sit on the AIS and they can tell when they're doing sail changes or when the bow comes down 5 degrees, because your boat so well. And the other boat's the same, then you can predict what he's doing.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so it would certainly make for exciting racing. But going back to your shore manager side of things, what is being shore manager and actually your previous experience doing the Volvo Ocean Race taught you about managing your team, your kit, and maintaining good team morale?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because the race is over such a long period of time, and you go through so many different phases in the race, in the preparation phase and the sort of the initial phases of the race where you're building, you're finding your way into it, and then the closing stages now, which is very sort of boom, boom, boom. It's incredibly intense, and people are getting tired because they've been working and living in such a close environment.
And less time to recover during shorter stopovers.
Yeah, exactly. So certainly for the crews, they're getting towards the end of it, and they're pushing. And these shorter legs are actually tougher than the long ones because you can't get in a rhythm, and you're pretty much awake the whole time. So it's very intense on board, and the same on the shore. But it boils down to just having very, very good people that run themselves. It's all about covering all the knowledge bases that you require to run a boat like this, which is very you need an extremely diverse group of people, and just the right sort of characters that are willing to go that extra distance without having to drive or prod them too hard.
And also being part of the first all-female team is extremely exciting.
Well, yeah, we've got to be careful with this one. It's not the first all-female team because Maiden and Harken, there has been a lot of female involvement prior to the race, and amazing feats that have been achieved by these teams, and it really laid the foundations for a team like this one to come along. Right. But it's probably one of the first times that they've had every single tool that an all-male team would have expected, or not an all-male, but just a full performance team. And I think it's showing. The scoreboard's not showing it, which is tough because they've been coming last in the last few legs here. But you could look at that and say that's a bit brutal. But when you actually look at how close they've been finishing to the other boats, it's quite an achievement what's been going on here. And I had the privilege of learning to race around the world off the likes of Magnus Olsen and Neil McDonald and these big names. So I was a little bright young face standing behind these guys in the Southern Ocean with eyes like a fish, and they would say, "Here, come on, have a go," and you jump on the wheel and roaring through the Southern Ocean. But you had someone like Neil standing behind you that you knew would keep you out of trouble or grab the wheel.
And you never go back after that.
No, you keep going back. But these girls haven't had that so much. They haven't had the opportunity in the racing environment to pick up off the experience of people who've done the race 3 or 4 times, like we did when we blooded in. So for the girls to be where they are at the moment in this race, they've come an awful long way.
And it's so exciting to watch. I've seen all of the videos on YouTube and things, and watching the progress on there, and it's really been inspiring.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic, and it's one of the neat things of being a part of this team is you're a part of trying to break some new ground, for females in sport, in the race, in sports in general. It's been had this fantastic experience in Newport actually, where I was just sitting in my office. I could see out the corner of the door there, and one of the crew walked past, and this lady who wasn't really into sailing, I don't think, she was walking a dog, walked past, and she asked her, "Excuse me, are you one of the crew?" And she said, "Yeah, I am one of the crew." And then she lost the power of speech. She just stood there and froze up, and all she wanted to do was just tell them how motivated they were by what they were doing, and it wasn't so much the sport or the positions, but it was just what it stood for. And you felt like, we're actually doing something really good here.
Yeah. And I mean, as well as this being an incredible experience, I'm going to end by asking you one final question, which is, come the next race, shore or sea-based roll?
Oh, I don't know. We'll see what comes along.
Yet to be seen.
Yet to be seen. Yeah, we'll keep all options open. But I do quite enjoy having my feet dry.
Well, there you go. There's all options open from Richard Mason here at Team SCA. You're with Harkin on the ground in Lisbon.